Okay, this video shows how to determine which underfloor heating loop goes to which area in the house, given this situation where there is no labeling of the rooms in the house back at the underfloor manifold. So we start off by removing all the electrical actuators. So effectively we're taking the electronic controls out of the equation, and we're replacing it with these manual control valves, and they allow us to turn on and off one loop at a time. So for instance, if I look at the flow meter on this one, while I'm closing that, we can see that we're going to close that down. So as we turn this valve, we can see that the flow meter will go from, it's at about 2 there now, and there, that's shut off. So we have individual control of all the loops. The reason we do this is because some thermostats will turn on 2 and 3 and 4 loops at a time, so we can't easily determine, if we turn on one stat at a time, which loop goes where. Okay, so that's the first step, putting on these manual valves. The second step is to try and get a plan of the house, or if you don't have a plan, draw out a rough hand-drawn plan. And then we want to pick at least 2 points in every room where we're going to make the measurements. So here in this dining room, for instance, I've chosen dining room 1 and 2 here, and in the kitchen a 1 and 2 there. So right now I'm standing in the dining room, so as I look at the plan, I'm actually looking that way, and down here in that corner I have dining room number 1. So what I've done is I've put a bit of tape in this corner to mark it and put a little 1 on it. That means that every time I come back to take another measurement here, I come back to the same spot. If I come a few inches away, the temperature could be different. And we do the same in the dining room here, with dining room number 2. So I've just marked that as well. And we repeat that all over the house. And then we need to create a table where we can record our temperatures. And this is just a hand-drawn table where we've got the time where we're going to start. The loops that are on, we'll start with loop number 1 on. I've all written there for the moment. And we start by taking a temperature everywhere in the house, which I haven't done yet. And that's our benchmark start. It's very important to say that we must start this experiment when the underfloor has been off for at least 7 or 8 hours, and preferably overnight, like 12 hours, to allow the floors to cool. That's quite important. And then when we've allowed them to cool, we turn on loop 1. So what I've done to start off the experiment is, in this instance we have 10 loops on the manifold, and I've turned them all numbers 2 to 10 all off, and we can see the flow meters are all up at the top there. They're all up, apart from the flow meter on number 1, which we can see the difference there. The red indicator is down low, so 1 is on. So I'm going to start my experiment by having 1 loop on in the house only, waiting several hours, typically 2 to 5 hours depending on the floor covering. Wood takes longer to react, and then I will make my measurements again. And we should see after that length of time that there's a temperature rise in some place in the house. It may be one half of one room here, or the pipes could be going this way also. It could be this half or this half, depending on how they were laid first day. And that's why we take 2 diagonals to try and see whether the loop is in this half or this half, if there are 2 loops. So after that, we'll have then determined where loop 1 is going, and once from the temperatures we determine where the loop is actually heating in the house, we will mark that on the manifold with a permanent marker. So for example, it might be, if loop 1 for instance was the playroom study, then we take a permanent marker and we write playroom our study here on one with a permanent marker so it's there forever. You do not write it on these electrical heads because they can move around. So we write it on there, and as a backup we would also mark it into the house plans here. So now we would, for instance, if there were two loops in the playroom study, we would know from our measurements whether the loop was here in this half or here in this half, or it could actually have been the other way around. So it's no harm to take a set of plans and draw in where the loop actually was, and we'd write, if it was this one for instance, we'd write loop 1. And the loop numbers on the manifold are always left to right. And you can see there I've marked them left to right, 1 here on the left and 10 on the right. And we repeat that process. So after we've got loop 1, now we close down the valve on loop 1, the flow meter will go, and we open loop 2, and you can see the flow meter going down. And now we got to wait. We've got to wait, another 2. Well, we take our. Sorry, at this point we would have just taken a temperature measurement there, which would be the end of our first experiment in loop 1. So we wait several hours, and the area that was loop 1 will start to cool, and some other area in the house will start to heat up. And we can repeat the process until we've gone all the way through. And that's it. That's how to track the loops on an underfloor system.